Story 1. One time, I told my parents I was going to spend the weekend at a friend's house for a sleepover. Instead, that friend drove me to the airport, where I had booked a cheap flight to the United Kingdom to watch a musical for which I had also bought a ticket. While waiting for the show, I ate lunch and bought an illustrated edition of the Silmarillion. Once the show was over, which was worth every penny, I returned to the airport and waited for my flight back. It was a very early morning flight, but I was young and figured I could stay up all night. I took the plane home. My friend picked me up from the airport, and I spent the rest of the day at her house sleeping. At night, my parents showed up and drove me home, none the wiser. Story 2. Just feels wrong to say out loud, but losing a close friendship has impacted me more deeply and for far longer than my father's death. Story 3. My mom confided that she had an affair with her mother's second husband. They planned to start a life together, but he died first. Geez, Mom, you couldn't find anybody else? Story 4. My stepdad's abuse went beyond physical. I am in my 50s now and just dealt with it. I went to therapy at my wife's urging, but I did not tell her everything. This was before the internet, and I honestly did not think what was happening could happen to boys. I had nobody to tell and would have been too embarrassed to share, so I just packed it away. I left home at 18. He died several years ago, and I am happily married with 3 kids, focused on being an awesome dad. Therapy does help if you find the right therapist. Story 5. When I was 12 or 13, I used to make out with my cousin. She was 2 years older than me. I saw her a couple of times a month usually, and we were always really close. I think one time we were just messing around, and she suggested practicing kissing for a boy she liked at school, so we made out. We ended up having long makeout sessions every time we saw each other for around a year. Nothing more happened, but I vaguely remember her trying to perform oral sex on me one time. We're not as close anymore, but whenever I see her at family events, we just pretend like nothing happened and have never talked about it since. Story 6. I'm completely depressed and isolate myself from friends. I'm tired, work is exhausting, and nothing is able to bring me joy. I recently got tickets for a band that I have wanted to see for 16 years, and even that did not bring me any joy. I used to have the energy to try to make new friends everywhere, but now I am just burned out. Story 7. I have never held hands or kissed anyone romantically, and I have never had sex in my life. This is mainly due to extreme shyness caused by a negative self-image stemming from an unsightly skin condition. The loneliness has led me to very dark places, but I have never crossed that line. However, I think about it daily as I get older. I am a 51-year-old man. Story 8. When I am ascending or descending stairs, the last step has to be with my left foot. I do not mention anything because I do not want people to mess with me. It is my little secret. Oddly enough, I am not obsessive-compulsive about anything else. Story 9. I think people think I am rude because I do not say hello to them in public if I see them. However, when I was a teenager, I had many moments where I said hi to people I knew, and they had no idea who I was. This made me feel like I am an incredibly forgettable person, and I am afraid that they will not know who I am. Story 10. I'm pretty sure I don't feel emotions like other people. When I was a kid, I used to practice smiling and laughing in the mirror because I could tell it was making people uncomfortable when I didn't react properly. I live a really normal, average life, so I think it would surprise most people. Story 11. I am not fine. I am tired all the time, and I do not have the energy to be upset or worried about it anymore when another potential medical issue arises. I do not have the capacity for it. I need things to be just normal for a little while, but the chances that I will ever get that are extremely low. Story 12. I knew my husband was going to propose the day he did. He was acting off as we were about to leave the house, and while he was in the bathroom, I felt his coat and found the ring box. He later refused to go without his coat even on a warm day as we were walking around, and I had to hide that I knew why. I still acted surprised and genuinely cried when he did, and I was beaming the rest of the day, week, month, year, and still today. But I will never tell him I knew beforehand that he was going to do it. Story 13. I destroyed the engine of a brand new truck by pouring a bag of sugar into it. They lived a couple of miles from us in the country, but their son and I rode the same bus. My dog liked to stand by the road when I got home to wait for my brother and me. He was a pit bull and border collie mix and exceptionally sweet. Even though they were miles away, they didn't like that he was part pit bull. He was in our fenced yard when my family went to the store and gone when we came home. He limped home 3 days later, and it was clear he had been run over by an all-terrain vehicle because the tracks were clear on his little flank. His leg was broken and twisted, and he was in so much pain. We didn't have the money to get him fixed, so he had to be put to sleep. Local police said there was nothing we could do, and that the family, who were the only ones in the area with an all-terrain vehicle, claimed they were terrified of our vicious dog. The son also smirked at us on the bus, pantomimed riding over something, and made a dog yelping noise. We buried him in our yard, and my mom let me plant a lilac over his grave. A few months later, those people got a brand new truck, and I decided to get some justice for Rex. They didn't have any cameras, so one night I walked through the fields to their small hobby farm with a 5-pound bag of sugar and poured it into the tank of their new truck and their all-terrain vehicle. We did get a visit from the police 2 days later, asking if we knew anything about some property damage that had happened the other night. My mom told them no, that we had all been home. I'm pretty sure she knew what I did because the next time we went to the store, she asked me to get another bag of sugar to replace the one I used, and she grinned at me. I haven't told anyone except my spouse what I did back then. Story 14. When I was a child, my twin brother used to do things that, looking back, were really strange and made me very uncomfortable even then. Much of it was disguised as play. I was still into imaginative play at 11 and 12 years old. But my brother was not. He hated playing pretend unless he could create a scenario where he could touch me. I remember many times when he would say, "Let's pretend," and it would end with him and me in his bed, with him holding me tightly from behind and refusing to let me go even when I protested. He would blow on my neck or in my ears and called it a willpower game. The same was true for the hands up the thigh game. He told me we should practice kissing and French kissed me. This seemed to excite him because he grabbed me by the shoulders, threw me onto the bed, and continued kissing and touching until our mother called us to dinner. I was disgusted then, as I am now recalling it. I never told anyone, and I will not. Both he and I were also physically abused by our father. As a result, my brother appears to have blocked most of his childhood memories. I have never brought it up to him because I fear he will accuse me of lying. None of my family would believe me anyway. Throughout my life, I have dealt with a lot of unwanted sexual touching from family and strangers. I sometimes wonder why this has happened to me so often. At home, at school, at work. Is this just part of being a woman? Am I doing something to cause this? Because of all this, I am very uncomfortable being touched by anyone, and I struggle to trust people. Story 15. My biological grandfather was a war criminal. A schoolteacher in Japanese-occupied Korea during World War II, he forced his students to become kamikaze pilots. Some survived the war and formed a mob to hang him. Grandpa hid in the mountains and returned a year later as a dedicated communist guerrilla, executing those former students, claiming they were colonial sympathizers. He did not survive the Korean War. Story 16. Groomed by a music teacher. I did not really understand what it was but knew it was wrong. He was convicted of abusing other pupils and then, surprisingly, was recognized in prison by another victim and convicted again. Story 17. I am really glad this post turned into something meaningful. It is heartwarming to see people being open and encouraging each other instead of tearing each other down. Reading everyone's stories and support gives me a lot of perspective. Thank you all for sharing and for reminding me how much kindness still exists. Story 18. I think about suicide every day. I know I will not do it because of my mother and husband. I just want the emotional and physical pain to stop. Story 19. I never actually graduated from culinary school. I was short one math class, and they let me walk at graduation anyway. 20 years later, no one in my life knows except me. Story 20. The night my mother died, my brother called earlier and said it was not looking good. I asked if I should jump on a plane, and he said he was not sure. I delayed and she passed. She waited as long as she could while I slept 1,000 miles away. It eats me up. Story 21. When I was in high school, a girl and I had a serious case of puppy love. One afternoon, we were hanging out in an orange grove near her house. I picked up an orange off the ground and said, "Watch this," before throwing it toward a tree about 20 meters away. There was a cluster of oranges hanging from one of the tree's branches, and the orange I threw hit the cluster stem perfectly. It snapped, and the oranges fell to the ground. One of the top 3 most impressive things I've ever done. I was aiming at a concrete block sitting on the ground about 2 meters away. Story 22. I grew up in care and was abused by other children and the staff themselves. I have told no one this, but I can see it is a major factor in my sexual addiction. Story 23. I am lonely. I have never had friends, and I am 39. Nobody messages me, calls me, or invites me anywhere. I stay at home outside of a very demanding job, looking after my disabled wife and 3 children, one of whom is also disabled. I am exhausted and sad, and the only thing that keeps me sane and happy is my wife's love and my children's happiness. I consider myself true to my morals and prioritize the health and welfare of my family above all else. If they are happy, I am happy. I was born 8 weeks premature and started life with a growth delay. I was very small compared to others my age until I was about 16. I was given growth steroids, which eventually started working when I was 19 to 21. I was bullied horribly at school, so much so that I attempted suicide at 15. I am grateful it turned out better with my wife and kids. Sadly, the lack of any happy social interactions throughout my life has left me with a significant deficiency in emotional intelligence. I do not know how to act around people, so they think I am strange and avoid befriending me or spending time with me. I cannot tell when people are joking or serious, which makes most interactions awkward. I also have a poor way with words and do not follow normal social trends, so I am out of touch with most modern ideas and behaviors. I might say something with good intentions, but people misunderstand me and get offended or uncomfortable. I hate it. I wish I had more in my life that made me happy as I am, rather than bending myself into situations to make others happy. Story 24. I'm extremely sad almost all the time, but I never show it because I hate the thought of messing up anyone's day with my problems. Also, a few times I wanted to end it all, but I know I never will because I never want my mother and brother to be sad, even though I don't feel I am worth anything. Story 25. I never feel good enough. My ex-wife cheated on me, and that ended our 20-year marriage. Then I dated a woman for about 8 months, and it seemed like it was going well until she said she wasn't ready to be in a relationship. I heard from a mutual friend that she started dating someone else a few months later. I am a good dad and friend, but the 2 women I loved would rather be with someone else. Story 26. It was my 18th birthday a few days ago, and I got kicked out that night. I have been telling everyone that I am coping, but I am scared. I really just wanted some birthday cake and candles, and I miss my bedroom. Story 27. I struggle with rage. I'm an ordinary, albeit disabled, middle-aged woman. I love people and I love life, but I first went to the doctor with painful symptoms when I was 17 and was dismissed as anxious. For the following 30 years, I continued to go to my general practitioner with different symptoms: pain, brain fog, and at times I had fatigue so bad I couldn't even form a word or focus my eyes. I tracked my symptoms. I begged for help. I tried diet, exercise, losing weight, supplements. You name it. I begged for help again and again. They told me I was mentally ill and medicated me. I had a difficult family who told me I was lazy, stupid, and more. Because the doctors told me there was nothing wrong with me, I believed it and let them and others use and abuse me because I thought I was lucky they kept me around at all. I contemplated ending myself many times. At 47, I was diagnosed with a genetic condition responsible for all the symptoms, but it was too late in some ways. After decades of no treatment, a certain amount of damage was already done, and I had to permanently stop working at 50. I am a very tough person, and I am determined not to let it ruin the rest of my life by ruminating on what might have been. But oh, the rage. If I hear about someone getting bad or negligent medical care, I can't help it. It wells up in me like bile. I guess it is post-traumatic stress disorder. But there is no help for that because I am generally happy and positive. So there you go. I won't talk about it because, in my experience, it would be an excuse to dismiss me as mentally ill, and that is not happening again. Story 28. My anonymous secret that I will take to the grave is this. I had a chance to save a very important friendship, but my pride got in the way. We drifted apart over a petty misunderstanding, and I was waiting for the other person to make the first move. I was so convinced I was right that I could not bring myself to text, "I am sorry, we never spoke again." Now I realize that the minor argument was not worth losing a person who was so important to me. It is one of the biggest regrets of my life, and I think about it every single day. Story 29. I found out purely by accident that my ex's father died by suicide. My ex was a baby when his father died of cancer. That's what everyone was told. Through work, I met someone who grew up on the same street as my ex's family. I said, "Oh, you must know the Smiths." And the customer replied, "Yes, very sad when he jumped off the railway bridge." The customer, seeing my shocked reaction, tried to backpedal, but it was too late. I will never tell my ex. We are good friends and share a son. It would destroy him. Story 30. When I was disowned for being gay, my mother burned all of my baby memorabilia, including grade 2 class pictures and my report card. That really drove home how much I was disliked. Story 31. I am going to delete this, but here it goes. My brother, who suffers from mental health issues, called me minutes before he murdered his girlfriend, and I did not answer the phone. I still have nightmares about it, watching the phone ring on the table. Every day I wish I had picked up that phone and talked to him because maybe I could have said something that changed the outcome. Now their poor children have no mother, and our family had to flee the country because of death threats and shame. Story 32. I am terrified for my friend. Their parents died, and they do not have any siblings. They refuse to get their first job and resort to selling parts of their parents' hoard because their parents were hoarders. I tried to help them get a part-time job where I work, but they refused because my employer might not pay for health insurance. Story 33. I am too talkative to keep anything to myself. I had a bout of colitis and had an accident on the bathroom floor. My fiancé cleaned it up and then gave me a replacement for the UGG slippers I ruined. Story 34. I was in the army, as was my grandfather. No other close relatives served. He was stationed in Germany during the Korean War. During one visit after I enlisted, he told me about the prostitutes he would see. This was while he was married. His story had a lesson. He realized they would wait for the soldiers to fall asleep and take money from their wallets. After figuring this out, he would hide his extra cash in his tie. He thought it was funny to then take them out for breakfast and flash a $5 bill in front of them. Story 35. My girlfriend says I am a sweet boyfriend. A lot of what I do to make her feel special and cared for I learned from the seduction community. I genuinely love her, but I needed guidance to understand how to show it. It's all part of the process, and she doesn't realize it. Part of me feels guilty when I watch a video from an expert, apply that the next day, and she credits me with making her feel better. Story 36. When I was 18, I helped my grandmother move into a nursing home. In her old house, tucked away in the back of a cedar chest, I found a small locked metal box. The key was taped to the bottom. Inside were letters and a few faded photos of her with a man who was not my grandfather, along with a birth certificate for a baby boy I had never heard of. The dates showed he was born just a year before my own father. My grandmother passed away a few months later. On her deathbed, she was in and out of lucidity, but at one point she grabbed my hand, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Do not let him ruin them." I knew exactly what she meant. I did some digging online. I found him, her other son. He had a family, a good career, and seemed happy. He had his own life, completely separate and unaware of ours. My father has always idolized my grandmother, viewing her as a saint. My grandfather, who passed years earlier, was a good but difficult man, and my father's relationship with him was strained. The image of his mother was the one constant, perfect thing in his life. I took the metal box out to a bonfire one night and burned everything. Every letter, every photo, the birth certificate. I watched until it was all ash. I did not do it for her. I did it for my father. He deserves to keep the one perfect memory he has. And I condemned a man to never know his mother or his brother. I chose one family's happiness over another's truth. I do not know if it was the right decision, but I would make the same one again. Story 37. I found out about my surprise 30th birthday party that my girlfriend was throwing for me. I discovered it 2 weeks before because a friend at work asked me how my party was. The only issue was that he got the dates incorrect, so he told me everything, and I had to act surprised the entire night. She pretended we were going somewhere else, but ended up taking me to a place with all my family and friends. It was so sweet. She was so happy she did it without me knowing, and I never said I knew. That was 13 years ago, and we are still together. I have thought about telling her, but I do not want to take away her happiness from that night. Story 38. I lost my virginity at 12 to a girl who was 10. She made the first move even though we had no idea what we were doing. It still happened. Looking back, I assume she was hypersexual because she was very into it for someone so young. She is 34 now and apparently still cannot maintain a relationship. I feel bad for her. Story 39. An old friend of mine married a serial cheater. He has been cheating on her since day one, and she knows, but she married him anyway. I recently found him on a "Are we dating the same guy" site, and I am not telling her about it. She is never leaving him, so I do not see the point in making her day worse. Story 40. If I do not have at least one person interested in me at all times, my life feels useless and dull. I am single, but I always have some kind of casual partner or go on dates. Story 41. Not a secret to the grave, perhaps, and nothing nearly as juicy or serious as the other ones here, but I took home a dessert spoon at a restaurant once because it looked so pretty. Story 42. Once, I did not recognize my good friend. She had cancer, and it was the first time I saw her wearing a wig. I almost went up to her and introduced myself. Story 43. My dad left before I was born, and I only found out because my sister snooped through my mom's stuff and discovered I was half adopted by her. I call him Dad. I was playing NBA 2K when my mom told me, and I didn't care because my mom was still my mom. My sister's dad had been divorced from my mom since we were babies, so I never had a father figure anyway. What kills me, and I still brush it off, is that when I was 9, my mom had a friend come hang out with me for a day. He was so much like me in every way. He took me to the comic store and talked to me like an adult, explaining things like an adult. He played songs from Guardians of the Galaxy since it had just come out. We ate at a park in Dallas, walked around, and had so much fun. He gave me a CD with his favorite songs. It was my dad. I never saw him again. My mom told me it was him and I just made some dumb joke about it. But it kills me. I don't tell anyone. I openly joke about it to my friends and my girlfriend, but it kills me. It makes me regret not being funny enough or cool enough to make him want to hang out more. Apparently, and I don't remember this, I told my mom, it feels like I just met my brother. And that sounds like something 9-year-old me would say. But yeah, Sean, worst part is I now love comics and Guardians of the Galaxy. When I hear songs like The Chain, it always makes me think about it. To everyone else, I couldn't care less. I just can't wait to be a dad and raise amazing kids. Story 44. I don't love my family, my dad and sister. My mom passed away 2 years ago. My dad certainly has his problems, and growing up with him is a large part of why I am this way, but none of them have done anything to deserve this. I am severely alexithymic and cannot genuinely feel anything. I have been this way my whole life. Growing up, I used to avoid saying, "I love you" to them because I did not want to lie. They noticed I was avoiding it and reacted strangely. Now I say it just because they expect and want me to. My emotional problems have really affected my life, and I cannot talk about them with my family because explaining everything would mean revealing that they do not mean anything to me, and they do not deserve that. Story 45. I stole a bag of Jolly Ranchers from the teacher's closet when we had a substitute in 6th grade, 35 years ago. It was not a big crime, but when the teacher said our class would no longer get candy for doing extra credit, I joined the group of kids arguing that it was unfair to punish the entire class. I was told that the principal himself stopped by to lecture the class about the situation the next day, but I was sick at home from eating too many Jolly Ranchers. Story 46. Ugh. So I once sent one of those get back together emails to my ex. And yes, he already had a new girlfriend then. The moment I came to my senses, I deleted every single trace. I will deny this to my grave. Story 47. I found a video of my daughter with a boy on her phone when she was 15. I deleted it knowing she could not say anything. I just hoped the person she was with did not have a copy. This was several years ago, and thankfully she is with a decent person now. Story 48. I know a woman through mutual friends. We are barely acquaintances. She is not very nice, and her husband is not very nice either. Last year, I saw her husband at a restaurant behaving inappropriately with a woman who was clearly in her early 20s. I initially noticed them because their behavior was so unusual that they stood out. Everyone in the restaurant seemed uncomfortable. Then I realized who the man was. Normally, I would say something to the wife. I'm that type of person. But not with this couple. They are mean and strange. I have a gut feeling that they might come after me. I see them rarely with their 3 children, and I say nothing. But I will never forget the husband publicly acting inappropriately with a much younger woman. Story 49. I secretly struggle with feeling like I will never be good enough, even though everyone thinks I am confident. Story 50. I am pretty sure my sister and I were sexually abused as very young girls, but I do not know by whom. I have memories of us doing things together, but I tell myself it was a dream. My grandfather did the same to my mother when she was a girl, so I think it was either him or my uncle. Story 51. No matter what I do or who I am with, I constantly feel like I am an asshole despite not doing anything in particular that would be considered as such. I even overcompensate for it by prioritizing everyone else's problems and being overly generous, while absolutely refusing to talk about anything I am dealing with because talking about myself at all makes me feel like an asshole. I also feel like I do not deserve anything good and that my entire life is going to end unfulfilled regardless of what I do. For once in my life, I do not have the slightest idea why I have these specific thoughts. Everything else I could figure out or have some indicator for. Story 52. I was raised to survive in a hostile world, and I tell my best friends that I could be just fine if most people suddenly vanished from my life. What I don't tell them is that I'm not attached to them either, and I have no reservations about abandoning them if I end up a failure. I just have trouble attaching to and genuinely caring about people personally. That isn't to say I'm cruel or lack empathy. I have been told I'm more empathetic than most. It's just that I have difficulty connecting to personal plights because I feel different and don't understand how people function. I tend to feel very distant. I was also sexually assaulted by a younger cousin when I was very young. He just would not stop bothering me. I spent days in fear that he would torment me if he saw me. Just the other day, I had a nightmare about being raped and felt the same humiliation and attempted mutilation that I had locked away deep down. Recently, I have been thinking that maybe I have dealt with a lot of trauma and that it may have had long-term effects. But I have always been told that men are supposed to be tough and that I just need to be stronger. Now I am strong and have nobody I truly feel I need. I just want to depend on someone. Story 53. My childhood best friend's death affected me more than any family member's death ever has. I lost a lot of my teenage years to mental illness after her passing and thought about suicide more than I will ever admit. It has been 10 years now, and I still miss you every day, Fee. Story 54. I have a half-brother who is not biologically related. Dad's first wife cheated on him, became pregnant, and had the baby. Dad divorced her but raised the child as his own, and nobody ever told the child the truth. He made me swear to never tell anyone, and I haven't until now. The worst part is that his mother raised all of the kids to hate their father and claimed that my mother was the homewrecker who tore the family apart. As a result, most of their children, including her son, treated Dad very poorly. When my mother died, his ex-wife desperately tried to get back with him. It is complete lunacy. Those kids are all troubled, and I don't think they understand why, but they sense that something is wrong about everything and everyone. Mom used to buy Christmas presents for all of the kids and grandkids, placing them under the tree in case any of them decided to visit their father or grandfather on the holiday. Only the two oldest children ever showed up. Soon after Christmas, Mom would carry the gifts back into the bedroom, quietly unwrap them, and return them. She did this every year and never complained once. I learned a great deal from this experience. Story 55. I still remember the first time I saw my father cry. His mother had passed away. My mother got drunk that night and told him how happy she was that his mother was dead and how much she had hated her. I have made peace with many things, but part of me still hates her for that. We never talked about it, but sometimes I think the only reason he stayed with her after that was for my sake. I would not have blamed him if he decided to leave. Story 56. I have no friends and no social life. It was always me reaching out, so I stopped, and it showed me that it is a one-sided relationship. I am surrounded by my family, but it is still very lonely out here. I do have a girlfriend. We have been together for 4.5 years, but it is long distance, so we do not get to see each other often. She is quite needy in terms of attention. I throw myself into work and try to keep fit to distract myself from the lack of meaningful bonds and companionship. Story 57. I am a man. I was sexually abused by my male cousins when I was a child, from the age of 5 to 12. This included beatings and constant humiliation, with the threat of telling everything to my parents and others. I was afraid, and those years were the worst of my life. From 15 to 21, I struggled with the urge to commit suicide. I never went to therapy and dealt with it on my own. There is only one person I told this to face to face. Now, I have to endure seeing them occasionally, at Christmas or special events. All of them are married and have children. Today, I am 29 years old. Story 58. I genuinely resent my parents for retiring abroad and can barely bring myself to stay in touch with them because of it. As someone with 2 young children and a partner with complex mental health issues, my parents were my lifeline to sanity and a place where the kids could go when my partner was having a particularly bad day to keep them away from that aspect of her life. The hardest part is the constant questions from the children about when they can see their grandparents again and the loss of that relationship between my children and their grandparents, which, until they moved, was amazing. I don't think I could ever love them the same way again after this, which is probably selfish on my part, as it's their life and they are entitled to live it how they want. However, this is something I won't be telling them. Story 59. I had 3 miscarriages before my daughter was finally born. From the time I was 16, my grandmother kept asking me when I was going to start having children. At first, I said, after I turn 18 and graduate high school, but she didn't understand. I had children at 16, so did your aunt, so did your cousin. Why wait? By the time I was 21, I had already had 1 miscarriage. Since no one in my family had fertility issues and it was expected of me to have children already, I didn't know how to bring it up. My family could be verbally brutal. I had another miscarriage when I was 27. I called my dad to tell him, but he went off on a tangent about a cousin being unmarried and pregnant again. Wasn't married and didn't need to be screamed at. I lost the baby a month later. A 3rd early miscarriage happened right before I became pregnant with my rainbow baby. I never thought it would happen. I either couldn't get pregnant or, when I did, I couldn't keep the pregnancy to viability. I have been criticized for waiting so long and for not having children when I was younger. I wanted children since I was 8 years old. I knew then that I wanted to be a mother. It took 18 years of trying and failing. She is 9 now and absolutely perfect. Worth the wait. But I wish my family could understand. I know they can't or won't, so I don't see the point in telling them. Story 60. I do not think I have ever loved anyone. I can care about someone because they are human, but I have never loved anyone. Not siblings, parents, friends, and I have never had a romantic partner. I really do not care if people die. I still do not think I am a psychopath since I do not manipulate people or anything. I just really do not care about them. Story 61. I was dating a guy and gave him my old tablet to play games. I logged into his Facebook account for him. He was very poor. I broke up with him because I was tired of being a nurse with a purse. One night, I accessed the old tablet account and saw his messages. I witnessed him being scammed online by a woman on Facebook. who said she sold jewelry internationally and was trying to return to the United States. She wanted him to buy her a cell phone. I laughed so hard because this guy was so broke, trying to get disability. He was trying to scam her while she was trying to scam him. He was very entertaining. I feel kind of bad about doing that. Story 62. My brother, my favorite person and ideal man, was suffering from stage 4 cancer. He asked for an ambulance because he was finding it hard to breathe. I was in charge of calling. However, I had a feeling that it would be his last day, so I didn't call the number we were given, even though we had the privilege of one call away ambulance. When my parents asked me for an update and everyone was already crying, I told them I couldn't reach the ambulance. It was the pandemic, March 2020. My brother died that same day. I have not told anyone about this since then. At that time, I thought he would either die at home on the way to the hospital or at the hospital. For more context, my brother had been fighting cancer for 2 years. It was hard for him to breathe on his own. He had his own oxygen tanks and was already bedridden. Story 63. While my ex-husband was dying, we fell back in love with each other. My kids and my current husband do not know that we carried on an emotional affair for the last several years of his life. Luckily, he had his cell phone locked, so nobody found out. I quietly grieve for him. Story 64. I have risen through the ranks of engineering, information technology, and now marketing with no ability to code or program a router. I have no background in finance. I was an English major. I am well-read, intelligent, and an excellent communicator. I am great at understanding concepts and can learn almost anything. Story 65. I see people as unnecessary burdens, and I have dealt with so much in my life that I no longer want to deal with it. I am married with children, very successful in my career, and generally well-liked. I do not have much family left. My mother passed away years ago, and my father is terminally ill. I have not spoken to him since around 1995. Every day, I wish I lived alone. No spouse, family, children, or friends. Just a completely selfish existence where I do not have to consider anyone else, help anyone, or have their needs interrupt my wants. That is the deepest secret I can share without using an anonymous account. Story 66. I am in stage 4 kidney disease and people think I plan to have dialysis and get on a transplant list, but I am planning to let nature take its course. I wish for death every day. Every time I cough and see stars a little bit, I wonder if this is finally it. My biggest problem is that I am embarrassed by the state of my house, and I do not want to die with it that way. However, I also need help, and I am too embarrassed to ask for it. Story 67. I am secretly on the autism spectrum but smart enough to hide it from everyone so that I am socially accepted without being treated differently. Story 68. I hate being a stepmother. I love my stepson like he is my own, but being a stepmother is difficult, especially because his biological mother is toxic and unpleasant. Story 69. I do not really care about anyone. I never have. I just pretend to care about the people who love me so they do not feel sad. Story 70. I am glad my father is dead. He was an irresponsible father who blamed everyone else for his actions. He married his last wife on her deathbed to get her money, which he wasted within a couple of years. He died last year and I felt relieved. I still have not picked up his ashes. When I do, I will probably put them in the closet bin. Story 71. I love my daughter and I love being her mother, but I hate being a mother. I hate having no privacy or sense of self. I have lost everything I love doing. I have not read a book in years. I have not used the bathroom by myself in a long time. I cannot watch my shows or go exercise. I love my daughter more than anything, but I wish I could be myself again. Story 72. I have written an Avatar, the last Airbender fanfiction that is over 600 pages long, and it is still not finished. Not to boast, but I really like it. The first couple of chapters are not very good, but it gets much better in my opinion. Story 73. I am a 41-year-old woman. I am single and live in a small apartment with my 2 cats. I struggle with alcoholism and cannot stop drinking. I completed a 3-month stay in rehabilitation and got better, but I started drinking again when I went back to work. My ex-boyfriend and I are seeing each other again, but I know it is because he is lonely too. I'm terrified to be alone. No one wants me. I am attractive and have a great job, but my low self-esteem means I have no friends, and no man wants me. I give attention to any man who even looks my way. I am severely depressed and lonely. I wonder why I am alive. To work, go home, drink, and cry? It does not feel worth it. I feel completely unlovable, and I know it. Story 74. Everyone thinks I am a happy, calm, outgoing person. In reality, I am fighting for my sanity every day. I wake up every day feeling useless. I do not enjoy life. I go through the motions. On my good days, I am still struggling. The constant thoughts of giving up, the apathy, the irritability, the anxiety, the lack of will to live, feeling overwhelmed when speaking to people. It becomes too much. I know I have depression and anxiety. I just wish for one day, literally just one day of peace. My friends know I struggle, but they do not know I think about wanting to end it nearly every day. People see me the way they do because I am almost always high in social situations. Story 75. I'm using food as a slow-motion suicide. What I mean is I binge heavily for a few days, then go without food and calories for 7 days, drinking only water. After each fast, I binge even harder. I lost my parents and older brother to cancer over the last 10 years, and I ate my grief. During that time, I went from 196 pounds to 425 pounds. My response after my dad died was the harmful eating pattern I'm on now. I lose a lot of weight when I don't eat, but the binging puts it back on. I know it's mostly fluid buildup. I can see and feel it in my calves each time I binge. It hurts badly. My doctors know about this, and I am not a candidate for surgery or any of the glucagon-like peptide 1 treatments. I understand how to lose weight safely and healthily, but as I said, it's intentional. It's a slow-motion attempt to kill myself. I am seeing therapists, but none have helped. I have an appointment with an eating disorder specialist in October. I have many other health issues that complicate things, including bladder cancer, which I have had for a couple of years, and epilepsy. I have 5 remaining siblings, but they all live in different parts of the country, so I don't see them. All my friends also live in another state, where I lived until my parents needed me to care for them as they passed. Making friends here is difficult at my age and with my obvious mental health struggles related to my weight. I'm alone. My only purpose is to slowly, painfully die. Thank you for asking. Story 76. 2 years ago, I was going through a rough patch. My mother was dying, and I was pushing my husband away. I started to think about my first love and swore I saw him at the gym one day, which was madness as I had moved to the other side of the world, so there was no reason for him to be there. Coincidentally, the next day he messaged me out of the blue, saying he had a dream about me and that I was not in a good place. He wanted to check if I was okay. It was all a bit wild. I had a trip planned back to my home country and planned to meet up with him in about 6 weeks. Long story short, we met up. I thought I still loved him. Nothing happened between us because my husband is actually the best, and I could not live with cheating on him, apart from an almost 2-year long-distance emotional affair. So technically, yes, I cheated. However, I recently had a conversation with him that made me realize why we broke up in the first place. I cannot believe it took me 2 years to realize the past is better left in the past. Yes, I regret what I have done. There is not a day I do not hate myself for it. But part of me is glad that I reconnected so I never have to wonder what happened to him. He turned into a terrible person. Story 77. When I was little, my brother molested me. He told me if I told anyone, my father would beat me. My father had a temper. I'll leave it at that. As we got older, he acted like it never happened. He is almost 6 years older than me. When I got older, I told my mother, and she did believe me. She ended up telling him, and he texted me apologizing. That was supposed to make it better, I guess. It was swept under the rug after that, and no one else knows. Needless to say, I do not speak to either of them now. Sometimes I wish I could tell someone, but I wouldn't even know how. It is hard after being constantly dismissed. Story 78. I was the last person to talk to one of my friends before he killed himself. He used to call me at least once a month, telling me that he was going to kill himself. I always dropped everything to go help him, but I started to realize he would always call me whenever I was doing something with other friends. I thought that maybe he was only doing it for attention, so I tested him. I posted on Facebook that I was going paintballing with some friends and put up a few posts with updates throughout the day that only he could see. After the third update, he called. I told him that I was expecting his call and that I didn't believe he was serious. We had an argument and then I hung up on him. A couple of weeks later, I went to another friend's birthday. We had chatted on Facebook comments where I said I had my train tickets and would be there at a specific time. Just after I got off the train and met up with this friend, the suicidal guy called me, telling me that this time he was really going to do it. I told him I no longer cared and that he could do what he wanted. An hour later, I got another call from his number, but it was his dad. His dad had found him on the bathroom floor, dead. A lot of people know my friend killed himself, but only his dad and the police knew that I was the last person to talk to him. His dad died last year. His dad always told me that he never blamed me for his son's death, but he sometimes wished that his son had called someone else that night. Since that friend died, 3 more of my friends have committed suicide. The last one was 6 weeks ago. I wasn't the last person to talk to those 3, but I sometimes wish I was. Maybe I could have talked them out of it. Story 79. I bought the Eras tour tickets for my best friend to give her a gift for a big milestone. Before I could give them to her, my income was cut in half, so I had to sell the tickets. I bought her something less expensive and never told her I had the tickets. She just told me this week that she is saving up for the next tour because not attending the Eras tour is one of her biggest life regrets. Story 81. My great-grandfather was a reluctant member of Hitler's Schutzstaffel. He saw what was coming and sent my grandfather to an uncle in New York, but was not able to get himself out. 2. I once received sexual favors from 2 strippers in a private room at a strip club. My friends arranged it, and I was just the right amount of drunk and aroused that I was unable to leave. That was more than 35 years ago, and I still feel uncomfortable about it. Story 81. I use hard drugs every day and have for over 25 years. Nobody in my life knows because I appear to be a normal person. I live a successful life by most standards, but I know that I am a drug addict. It will all come out when I die, and it will hurt the people in my life. I don't think the drugs will kill me directly, but when they go through my belongings, they will find it. Story 82. I developed an attraction to older women when I was 23. I went to my friend's grandmother's apartment, who was in her 60s and single, to fix her computer around 2010. She was dealing with viruses, pop-ups, and malware. While I was fixing it, she made me lunch. She was a larger woman and not wearing a bra. We ate together, and afterward, while she was doing the dishes, I kissed her on the cheek and thanked her for lunch. We started making out, and over the next 6 years, we were intimate 3 to 5 times a week. Nobody ever found out. I lived closer to her than my friend did. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.